and welcome to American Friction, the US politics podcast that you've got a little crush on.
Ooh.
I'm a man with 3 first names, so if you need to borrow one, let me know. I'm Jacob Dylan Jarvis.
He is indeed, and I am Chris Jones. Interestingly, the only Chris Jones on this pod.
Chris, I'm going to tell you now that that isn't interesting, but someone who is interesting, beaming in all the way from live and noisy New York, it's Nikki McCann Ramirez. Nikki, hiya!
Hiya!
You scripted this.
I know.
It's literally written into the script. Nikki, hiya, 6 days.
Hiya! That's just how we say hello here.
That's good.
And up north, that's how I say it. On this show, we are going to discuss how Trump wants to cut the US budget and wants everyone to just ease up on spending, despite having made himself a room out of gold in the White House. We'll pick apart the details and we'll round up some stories that you might have missed. But before that, Chris,
Jarv,
it is that time of the week. Let's get silly then. Give us a silly question.
Okay. How many dolls have you got?
Oh, well, couple of blow-up ones. That's about it.
Stop there. I shouldn't ask that question at all. I'm still going to ask this question. I don't know if I want to hear your answers to the question, but I'm going to ask it. Trump says you only need 2 of them.
Okay.
You only need 2 dolls, which is... what's he on about to begin with? It's the president we're talking about.
You've got at least 200 Funko Pops.
What are you fucking talking about? Shut your mouth. Anyway, the question to you, to you two is, and to me, if you want to ask it back to me.
Okay, we will.
Is, what were your favourite childhood dolls? And like Mark Carney, ones that you would never sell. Not up for sale. You couldn't get rid of them. Not if you tried.
I can go for this one.
Yeah?
So my favourite toy... So I had loads of vintage Star Wars stuff that I quite liked. That was my dad's when he was a kid, and he kept that through for me. That was cool. But the toy that's less cool, but it's had a bit of a resurgence lately, actually.
Yeah.
I had a Tiny from Tots TV doll. Tiny who does the voice.
Tiny.
Yeah, no, that's Tom.
Oh, damn it,
You're
yeah.
doing Tom, but Tiny...
Do your Tiny impression.
Tiny's a bit like...
Well, the thing is, Chris, like, when we're doing the podcast, it sounds a bit like this, is what Tiny sounds like.
Oh, my goodness.
Like that. But I love this Tiny toy so much that I would speak to it. Even though it was my mum doing the voice of Tiny. But so, say if I came in from school and I seemed a bit down or whatever, and mum would be like, what's wrong? Are you okay? You had a nice day at school? And I'd be like, I'm not talking about it. Tiny'd come along.
Yeah.
And be like,
So, how was school today then, Jacob?
and I'd tell him chapter and verse.
Yeah.
Fucking rat, I'd tell my mum.
Yeah.
It was my mum all along.
Yeah. And this was only last week, wasn't it?
I only speak to my mum through Tiny. Put a bit of a strain on the relationship at this age, but, it's fine. But, so that's mine. Tiny.
Good.
And that's why I've got the impression nailed down.
Oh, absolutely. Nikki, what about you?
I mean, dolls? I don't remember myself as being like a big doll child. I knew I had a couple of Bratz dolls, which I really liked.
Hell yeah.
And then I think the toy that probably got the most mileage in our house was a little like kitty karaoke machine.
Nice.
It didn't connect to the TV. It didn't connect to anything. It was just like a speaker and a microphone that was really shitty. But my brothers and I used to put on like full-blown shows for my parents.
Did you also used to put on the voice of your dolls as well? And if so, could we have a little example?
Yeah, like a Bratz
Not really,
doll
no.
voice.
No?
No?
No.
Okay, well,
That's
I've
poor.
actually got a little karaoke mic at home, Nikki, which you clip a phone into. I don't know why. Lisa bought me it and then has consistently
You
been
should
like,
get on that.
you're so loud. And I've said, well, yeah, I was loud before you bought me a karaoke mic. And now I'm going to...
If this was a problem, why did you give me an amplification
exactly.
machine?
And it's got echo on it and everything. It gets a lot of Creed belted. Hold me now.
No, we don't need that.
Chris, we're doing impressions. Chris, anyway, what was your toy?
I actually don't know if I could do an impression of this guy.
Okay, you can.
But it was a WWE wrestler, Randy Savage.
Okay,
but he was
nice.
in an outfit that I never actually saw him in
Really?
real life. I'd take it everywhere. It had
Everywhere.
a little like nubbin. That's not right. It had a little thing on the back, a little switch.
Okay,
that if you pressed it down, both his arms would come up.
Nice. That's a
Not
good
just
move.
one of them.
So it could
but-
flip other toys.
Yeah, but also also just double.
What did you
double
do with it
uppercut.
when you took it around? Did you speak to it? Did you just play with it?
Not really.
Just- no?
I just really liked him.
Okay.
I just really liked him. Took him to school a few times.
Could you do an impression of any wrestler?
It's a good question.
Surely, come on.
I don't know.
You can't see me.
A bit of that.
Yeah, nice.
I don't know about
Can
any
you
like.
smell what the pod's cooking?
Yeah, but that's just a song, isn't it?
Yeah,
That's
well,
just his
it's fine.
tagline.
All right, well, you ruined it. Come back towards the end of the podcast with an impression, okay? Shall we get on with it?
We should. Welcome back. This is American Friction.
Okay, this week we have a different request, just to mix it up, keep you on your toes. So, can you please make sure you go and subscribe to American Friction wherever you're listening to it? So, if you're on Spotify, there's a little bell at the top of our show page. Go hit it. Go ding that bell.
Please do. And if you're on Apple, there's a button at the top that says follow. Go and hit that, please.
And once you've done that, leave a comment or rate and review us. We're all very egotistical, so we need validation.
Yes.
Speak for yourself.
And all of this helps. Come on, Chris. All of this helps to make the show get bigger, which means it will get better, won't it, Chris?
I don't know. Maybe. Yes. Also, definitely.
Well, anyway, go subscribe, follow, rate and review wherever you're listening to the show. Just give you a second to do that. On to the show. Nikki, the budget. So Chris is going to give us some numbers, but on the whole, Trump is proposing big cuts.
Yeah.
You simply can't cut as much money as Trump says he wants to without fucking stuff up, can you?
Well, yeah. The big thing here is that while Congress needs to pass a budget resolution, the bigger goal of the Trump administration right now is making the 2017 tax cuts permanent, which would mean, I think, something like a $4.5 trillion reduction in tax revenue over the next, I don't know how many years, like a decade. Like, basically, that's the amount of money we would lose in tax revenue if those tax cuts are made permanent. You have to pay for that somehow. You can't just cut out a bunch of your revenue and say, okay, we're going to keep spending in the same capacity. We're going to spend more. So to pay for those tax cuts, the Trump administration is proposing really deep budgetary cuts in the budget that is currently being worked on in the House. I think it's something like $250 billion across the board. And this is already on top of like the theoretical savings that they made through the Doge cuts, which we don't really have a concrete number on that yet because they said they were going to cut like $1 trillion. It was a lot less. We don't know how many of those cuts will actually be permanent because a bunch of them are being fought in court. You know, how many people did they actually manage to fire? What departments are actually still functional? If the budget was already allocated to a department, what happens to that money now? So we still don't have a clear picture of what the Doge cuts really entailed. And now they're looking to make up more of that that theoretical tax deficit through the actual congressional budget.
Chris, you love numbers.
Do I?
You're the number boy.
Oh, okay.
The number boy. So, can you quantify for me a bit of how much he is proposing cutting?
Right. So the budget requested is for 1.7 trillion, basically. And the total number in budget cuts to things like housing and medical research, I think from what I've seen, is about $163 billion. And you're going to ask me, what are some of the things that are going to be cut?
I am.
Go on then.
Yeah.
Chris, what are some of the
gonna be
things?
cut, Chris?
Yeah.
Oh, it's coming from everywhere. Lots of things. Lots of things are going to be cut. So I'll do a little roundup of health, defence, and then NASA as well, which has come under fire from these budget cuts as well, which isn't nice for NASA.
No, I've got to be nice about space as well, because people in the past have been annoyed at me for being flippant about space and stuff.
Well, you shouldn't be flippant about space then, should you?
Be. It's big.
Well, you've brought it on yourself.
Be nice to space.
Bloody big.
Anyway, when it comes to the Department for Health and Human Research, the cuts to discretionary funding amount to about 26%. So the NIH, the National Institute of Health, will lose about $18 billion. And all of it, while the White House says this in the document, the NIH has broken the trust of the American people with wasteful spending, misleading information, risky research, and the promotion of dangerous ideologies that undermine public health. Very much mirroring the kind of attitudes that Trump's administration has had towards federal departments such as the NIH and just overall health research, it seems. We should also mention, though, that 19 states are still suing Trump over the mass job cuts that we've seen to the Health and Human Services Department, which is around about 20,000, I think, which is a hell of a lot of jobs. So that's still going ahead. There's also a load of cuts to the environmental research programs and stuff like that. Now, on defense, this is quite interesting because he had promised an historic $1 trillion in the budget towards defense, but that doesn't seem to have happened. Just for some context, Biden's administration requested an $849.8 billion budget on defense for the fiscal year of 2025. What Trump's budget appears to work out for fiscal year 2026 is $892.6 billion. So that falls short of that $1 trillion budget for defense that he had promised. And that has drawn quite a bit of criticism. Senator Roger Wicker, the chairman of the Senate Armed Services Committee, criticized this, and he said President Trump successfully campaigned on a peace through strength agenda, but his advisors at the Office of Management and Budget were apparently not listening. For the defense budget, OMB has requested a fifth year straight of Biden administration funding, leaving military spending flat, which is a cut in real terms. And then something from Mitch McConnell as well, which I thought was really interesting. He had some choice words and said, "I'm very concerned the requested base budget for defense does not reflect a realistic path to building the military capability we need to achieve President Trump's peace through strength agenda."
It's worth noting that the Department of Defense has failed its annual audit, like budgetary audit, 7 years in a row. Like, there's already fucked up shit going on there.
Yep. Job.
And also, second time we're going to say it within a space of a week. Got to give it to Mitch McConnell there.
You love that guy now, don't you?
He's growing on me.
Oh, dear.
Jesus Christ.
Oh, dear.
What about Mitch McConnell on the pod, Nikki?
No.
Okay, I'm going to cut it there, like Trump's budget cuts, because I want to talk about some more, and that's NASA.
NASA.
There's big cuts to NASA, about 24% to its top-line funding, which some experts say the largest single-year cut to NASA in American history. And according to, don't jump in yet, I'm not finished. And according to the Planetary Society, would recklessly slash NASA's science budget by 47%, forcing widespread terminations of functional missions worth billions of dollars. So it's official, Trump, he hates space.
One small cut for man, one giant cut for mankind, I guess.
You think you're a genius with that, don't you?
That.
I didn't. Well, I can see Simon absolutely pissing himself in the control room, but I'm not going to fall for it.
I've got an ally in Simon. Thank you.
Good for you.
It was Chris's reaction, to be fair, for me that did it.
Okay, fair enough. You can like the dad jokes, Simon. It's fine. You're allowed. Nikki, can you talk us through? So the process is a little bit confusing, like every process is in America.
Of course.
What is the process for the budget then? There's a thing called reconciliation. Can you explain that to me? Like I'm an idiot. Chris?
Yeah.
Yes, I am an idiot.
You are an idiot.
Yeah, thank you.
Well,
So just
first of
explain
all,
it.
it's reconciliation, not reconciliation.
Reconciliation?
No,
Recon.
reconciliation.
What would you say, Chris?
Yeah.
As long as you can understand it, I'm easy with both.
Okay, fair. Potato.
Let's see, right.
So yeah, reconciliation.
That's my favourite Harry Potter spell.
Literally.
Reconciliation.
Nice. But okay, reconciliation.
Okay. So as we've discussed before on the pod, one of Congress's main responsibilities, particularly the House of Representatives, is passing the government's budget, literally delineating every Congress what money is going to be spent where and on what. If, as we've observed over the past year of this podcast, if the branches of government are split, if Congress is split, if there's a Democratic president, a Republican Senate, a Democratic House. That process can get really fucking messy because you have competing interests. You have to convince members of the opposing party to join onto your bill, to approve your budget. It's a lot more negotiation. As we've seen, sometimes you don't actually get a bill. You just get a series of continuing resolutions that extend the previous budget until there's a shutdown, which thankfully so far has been avoided. That's sort of like the standard process. However, when you have like uniparty control of the government or even just uniparty control of Congress, you can invoke a process called reconciliation, which is basically a streamlined way to make the congressional budget in a moment in time where theoretically the party in power can just like give the middle finger to the other party and say like, we're in charge. We don't really have to deal with you right now. So I'm just going to walk people through the structure here of what happens during a reconciliation process, because it is different from what we've been watching happen over the past year with the budget. The first thing that happens is that the House will pass what is called a reconciliation bill. That bill isn't actually the budget. It's instructions for the rest of Congress on what they have to do to get to the budget. So basically, this is our target. This is what every committee has to either cut or reallocate or work around to get us to that target. So that reconciliation bill and those instructions go to individual committees. And then those individual committees make a bunch of smaller budget bills. So the Energy and Commerce Committee, which oversees like a ton of Medicaid and Medicare services for the budget, has been ordered to cut like $800 billion.
Oof.
And the only pool that could come from is theoretically Medicaid. So there's a lot of questions right now about, is this budget going to cut a ton of public funding out of the American healthcare system? Each individual committee will do its cuts, debate its bill. It'll be debated within committee. They'll produce basically a bunch of tiny bills, tiny little budget bills.
Cute.
That then get slapped together, get just like Frankenstein together into what's called an omnibus spending package. And because we are in the reconciliation process, and there is uniparty control, they can pass that bill in an expedited fashion. There's no possibility to filibuster the rule during floor debates. And then the Senate can pass it with a simple 50-vote majority. Whereas with a standard budget bill, you typically need 60 votes to pass the bill. It's a lot of things. It's basically sort of distributing the work and then everyone comes together to vote on the final product. It's a lot of negotiations. And the thing we're seeing right now is that the main assumption that underlies this process is that the party in power is theoretically in agreement on everything that they want to accomplish in this super massive spending package. That is currently not the case with the Republicans. The Trump agenda is incredibly aggressive. We've heard Trump talk a lot about how he wants to get absolutely everything he promised in the campaign done under one big, beautiful bill. That's the bill they're talking about. It's the omnibus spending package. But the thing is, the way Trump is talking about it, you're going to see things like immigration enforcement folded into this budget bill. There are a lot of other riders and things Republicans seem to want to add into this bill that even amongst Republicans, they don't totally agree on.
Chris, just a quick one, because the word omnibus, when I think of that, I think of when they would replay all the soaps
Street
in a row. Yeah, which would be your pick of the soaps for an omnibus if you had to sit down and watch them?
If I had to sit down and watch them?
Yeah, watch an omnibus.
Probably EastEnders, to be honest.
EastEnders,
yeah,
okay.
It's got the most drama.
Hollyoaks.
Pathetic.
I'd gone for. Come on, it's good. So with that said, then Nikki, not the British soaps bit, but with that said, there's disagreement. Then, how have Republicans been reacting to this? What's been the fallout from Trump making these comments?
I wouldn't necessarily call it fallout. I think the big thing here is that we've talked about how a lot of Republican voters are not happy. How Trump's approval rating is falling. People are not happy with the DOGE cuts. They don't like the way a lot of these immigration enforcements have been conducted. They don't like this feeling of uncertainty over the future of entitlements like Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security, big social safety net programs. that are kind of the only things that Americans really have in an already shitty social safety net system. Like, we don't have a lot of the things people in Europe and the UK have. So when these programs are under threat, that's really unpopular. And you already have rumblings that there might be a really intense voter backlash in the 2026 midterms against Republicans.
Yeah.
You already have people saying that it might be like a 2018 style blue wave against the Trump presidency that results in Democrats either taking back the House or the Senate. So you have Republicans in vulnerable districts who are basically saying, hey, if we do some of these things, we're going to get fucked. Like, we're going to get absolutely steamrolled when it comes time for people to actually vote on this. So what was essentially desired to be a quick, speedy, we're going to slap these bills together, we're going to get it passed early on when everyone's really popular and Trump and Republicans were riding the high of the new presidency, that, like, new president glow seems to be gone. And Republicans are really having to work to whip their own votes on this bill. And we saw Thursday when we're recording that Speaker of the House Mike Johnson came out and said, no, there will not be cuts to Medicaid, which is a huge win for, opponents of that plan and just the general public as a whole. Because you were talking about thousands and thousands, like tens and thousands, probably hundreds of thousands of people potentially losing access to healthcare coverage in the United States. And I'm not going to talk a lot about it because I'm working on a big piece about it. But I was at a big conference in DC over the weekend where I was speaking to people who work for hospital systems throughout the United States.
Yeah.
And they were telling me that if these Medicaid cuts went into effect, they would be closing hospitals because they wouldn't be able to pay for rural medical care without Medicaid. And so it just goes to show that public pressure does have an effect, and Republicans are feeling the sting of the policies Trump has put into place so far in his presidency, which, to be clear, happened with the support, but not necessarily the consent of Congress. As we discussed in our 100-day episode, Trump has only passed 5 bills through Congress. Everything else has been through executive order, and Congress is now feeling the sting of that.
With all this going on as well, Nikki, he has basically been talking about how he wants to cut spending, but this has gone into people's personal lives as well. So as Chris mentioned earlier, he wants to restrict how many dolls little girls can have. Also wants to restrict how many pencils children can have as well.
You can have 5 pencils.
5 pencils.
5 pencils.
That's it. And yeah, for boys, maybe an Action Man or whatever they want. I don't know what they have these days. What are good dolls these days?
I don't know. I'm not up to date on the dolls market. It's mostly Jarv. No, I couldn't tell you.
Come on, what Funko Pops are you after?
Couldn't tell you a thing, mate.
Chris has got a Baby Yoda Funko Pop on the way.
Aww.
Anyway.
Grogu. Which is his real name.
Baby Yoda.
Oh, I thought you were talking about my cat. And I was like, how'd you get that?
That would be cute, actually. But he's been telling people not to buy more than they need. Is Trump not a capitalist anymore? Is that not?
No.
Has he changed his mind?
He's an out-of-touch rich man.
Okay.
Like, that's really what it comes down to. The thing here is it's a policy of austerity for thee, but not for me. One of the big things right now is that Trump and his administration cannot openly admit that the tariffs are bad economic policy, that are bad for the economy, and that are going to hurt consumers. It's the reason he angrily called Jeff Bezos over a rumor that Amazon was going to start displaying tariff-based price increases on the website, Because if Amazon does that, that's an open admission that, things cost more. And the Trump administration is insisting that things are fine, that it's just temporary gain, that everything's going to be better and cheaper, and all these trade deals are going to save the American consumer. That's not what's happening. Couple that with the fact that Donald John Trump has never in his life had to look at a credit card statement and been like, oh, do I have enough for groceries this month? Do I have enough to buy a doll for my child's birthday? Do I have enough to make sure my kid gets the school supplies he needs for the year. He's never had to do that. It's my colleague Ryan Bort wrote a really great story a couple months ago. And I think I mentioned it on the podcast about how Trump has a really weird fixation with the word groceries, like the concept of groceries, the concept that food isn't just something that materializes when your private chef brings it to the table. It's something that like poor people have to go to a store and shop around and buy, and groceries. And sometimes they get more expensive, and that's bad. And the way he talks about it, you can tell that he's a man that from the time he was born hasn't had to balance his own checkbook, hasn't had to deal with, you know, going to the grocery store to buy like milk and eggs and bread and make sure he has his budget for the week. And so he's telling people like, oh yeah, your child, your little 15-year-old baby girl doesn't need $30. First of all, weird. What? Second of all, no one is buying their child $30. No one who doesn't have money to actually burn is doing that.
Yeah.
And what it is just a really weird distraction. Because I do think it's kind of stupid. It's really funny. It's fundamentally like really bad spin from the White House about the fact that prices are going up. Things are going to get more scarce. The trade deal with the UK is the first trade deal that's been announced after weeks of theoretical negotiations. And like, not that I don't love you guys, but you're not, I don't think you're in the top 5.
We're a big fucking deal. We're a really big deal.
We're beanox.
You are a big fucking trade deal.
Yeah.
But I don't think we're buying the majority of consumer products from the United Kingdom.
No.
Probably not.
We're not. We're just not. It's really cute and fun, but you're a nice trade deal to have. You're not China. You're not Mexico. You're not Canada.
No, we're not. That's true.
But in my heart, you are number
one. And I'm glad we're not, because we're Britain.
That was so half-hearted and lame.
I hate that.
I'm glad we're Britain.
Yeah, I know. It was a piss take.
Well, it didn't sound like it.
I'm not really patriotic.
Yeah, you are. You love it.
Rubbish, aren't we?
Final point.
Sure.
It's really, it's such bullshit that he is saying this while also like having the Prime Minister of Canada in his office and being like, do you see all my gold? Do you like my gold?
Yeah.
Look at my hoard while the peasants starve.
Mark Carney's face throughout that as well, when he was just basically saying, we don't do very much trade with Canada. And it's like, you do.
Yeah.
I think you'll find that you do. With that then, the UK trade deal, can we try and touch upon it? But we're struggling to touch upon it, aren't we? Because he hasn't gone up and done a speech about it really yet.
Well,
so what do we know?
They're doing it right now.
Oh.
They're doing it right now.
And it's live.
Yeah, and it's live. So what it seems like it is it's some kind of, is including things like steel. Cool. I saw the word beef in there. And also things like ethanol. I think what we should do is maybe let's come to this next week.
Yeah.
Because at the moment, you know, it's pretty hot. There needs to be time to be able to see what's actually in it and how it's going to benefit. Because both parties are saying that this is incredible and this is history. In fact, Donald Trump, before the speech came out, he went on Truth Social and he said this. He said, the agreement with the United Kingdom is a full and comprehensive one that will cement the relationship between the United States and the United Kingdom for many years to come. Because of our long-time history and allegiance together, it is a great honour to have the United Kingdom as our first announcement. So we're best of it.
Rule Britannia. It's VE
But then
Day.
you got a ton of like background sources from people in the British government being like, no, actually, this is not a comprehensive trade agreement.
Exactly, and I think that's why we need to probably take this in first and then see.
I have a quote.
Another quote. Brilliant. Do it.
Out there.
From Howard Lutnick.
Nice.
When they announced this, this trade deal in the Oval Office. Lutnick. We started at 10% and ended up at 10%, and the market for America is better. And this is a perfect example of why Donald Trump produced Liberation Day. And that's a tweet. And then I'm going to read you the first comment from a guy named David.
Cheers, Dave.
Hey, Dave.
Oh, who has an American, a Mexican, and a British flag in his bio. It's like all three of us.
Oh,
that's
yeah,
cute.
Nice.
But it says, I'm not a mathematician, but if you start at a number and end up at that same number, doesn't that mean there was no change?
Yeah.
I would think so.
Howard. The thing is, though, going back to how good you can do trade with Britain, though, now,
How
Nikki,
good you can do trade.
You can do it real good.
Yeah.
Real goodly.
Imagine how nice a doll you could craft from steel, beef, and ethanol.
Yeah, that is good and nice.
Big, realistic, fleshy doll of some kind. So that'd be good. And
Yeah.
a bit scary, but dolls are scary.
There you can be
I'm
in
really
the
fucking
right
wigged out by 'em.
context. Yeah.
Oh, I don't like 'em.
Chucky.
Dummies. I really don't like.
What?
Like
Pacifiers?
Dummies. No, like dummies. Like, like the big dolls, like the more human-y dummies.
Yeah, they're not ideal.
They're scary. Chris, final point.
Yeah, go on then.
So, Trump keeps saying, this ain't my economy. It's Biden's economy.
Ugh.
When it's bad. But when it's good, he goes,
It is, yeah.
the good bits are mine. Do people think that it's still Biden's economy?
No.
Ugh.
So Gallup has done some research on this. We've mentioned them a few times, actually. I know, yeah. Went really high pitch then.
Please tell me more.
Yeah, I am 14, so I'm going through it at the moment. There's been some that's a puberty joke.
So you don't want to talk about your dolls.
No, I'm all right, thanks. Anyway, Gallup has done a survey of 2,036 US adults.
A lot of them.
That suggests that people aren't seeing it as Biden's economy. They asked the question, who do you think is more responsible for the current state of the US economy? I'm not going to tell you what Democrats and Republicans say because you can probably guess.
Sure.
But when it comes to independents, 43% say Trump, 24% say Biden, and 25% say both, and 7% say neither. So they probably just don't have a clue. And then if you look at some research done by YouGov too, among US citizens, over 50% say they believe Trump is responsible for the state of the economy compared to Biden at around 28%. You can also see there's kind of a trend emerging from that polling as well, that Americans believe that in a year from now, their finances will be worse off. In November, 41% thought in a year they'd be better off. That is now at 30%, so that's an 11% drop. So maybe Trump isn't quite the economist that he paints himself to be.
Perhaps. Now it's time to round up some news that you might have missed over the past week or so. Nikki, Alcatraz, it's back, baby. It's back. Alcatraz
We're
is back.
so back, baby.
Yeah, we're here. We're doing it. We've got Alcatraz back because, they need it. It sounds fucked up, but it's also a bit of a distraction from current bad prison conditions and other facilities, which are pretty horrific anyway, without bringing Alcatraz back.
The guy just has an obsession, a fixation on sending people to prisons that were notoriously abusive
Yeah.
to the people in them. It's not great. It's not great. I think it is kind of some bullshit. Alcatraz is a museum. It's by no means state of the art. It's old. It's it would cost so much money to get it back into a condition where it would be actually usable. It is a distraction. I think we talked a bit about it with Jamel. You have to take him seriously when he says shit. But also, some of the shit he says is so fucking unserious.
Yeah.
And I think this is one of them. He did the same thing with Guantanamo. They tried to send people there and then it immediately became a problem and now they're not. What they have found is if you do these things domestically in the United States, for example, if you were to reopen Alcatraz and put a bunch of prisoners in there in the conditions that it's in, given the fact that it's been in disrepair for so long, you are just opening yourself up to a bonanza of lawsuits about how the government is violating the 8th Amendment by subjecting people to cruel and unusual punishment. The workaround that the Trump administration has found, which so far has worked, has been to simply deport people to foreign gulags like the ones in El Salvador and claim that because it's not in the country, the laws don't apply.
Okay. Chris.
Hello.
New COVID conspiracy theorist working in the government just dropped. Wah, 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 wah. Tell me about Vinay Prasad.
He's a bit of a strange guy.
Wah, 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 wah.
Yeah. So Dr. Prasad is he's a hematologist oncologist.
Fucking do that again. That's good.
Hematologist oncologist.
That's a good rhyme, man.
That's just two words that I've read next to each other.
Yeah.
Right. Is that? So he is a doctor. He replaces...
He's a hematologist oncologist.
That's right,
Yep.
He replaces Dr. Peter Marks as the FDA leader of its Center for Biologics and Evaluation and Research. Side note, when Marks resigned, he was talking around RFK Jr., basically thinks he's an idiot because
Fuck that guy.
He's an idiot.
Yeah.
But when he resigned, he released a statement in which he said it has become clear that truth and transparency are not decided by the secretary, but rather he wishes subservient confirmation of his misinformation and lies. Back to Prasad. One of his biggest responsibilities will now be to lead the vaccine division of the FDA, and he's not the type of person really to shy away from his opinions. He's actually got his own Substack, which I'm not sure whether you've looked at. It's called Vinay Prasad's Thoughts and Observations.
Confirmation of misinformation on that. I'm guessing, yeah.
What do you mean?
So there's a confirmation that that's full of
do you want me to
misinformation.
confirm that there's misinformation? It's there seems to be.
Okay,
There
fair.
seems to be. I'll be honest, I haven't gone too far into it because it's the kind of writing that makes your head hurt if you read too many big words for me.
Yeah.
He wrote something, though, called How Democracy Ends. And this was around about 2021, I think it was, during the COVID-19 pandemic, where he basically envisions a path to where America becomes a totalitarian state based upon its response to the COVID-19 pandemic. And I'll put it into context for you. It's bollocks. There's your context. Don't bother reading it. All it did was really to serve conspiracy theorists and back up their thoughts and ideas that lockdowns and vaccinations were all a big conspiracy to control the nation's population. That's basically all it served to do. It was really quite odd. There's a video as well. You can go and watch him talking about it because he's got his own YouTube channel as well because he's that cool. Back to vaccinations though, as you mentioned, he's a bit of a conspiracy theorist. He kind of leans into a lot of misinformation, and he's not a supporter of COVID-19 vaccination boosters in children, which has brought him quite a lot of criticism. And there's been a bit of backlash as well around this appointment. So BMO market capitalists, they said that while Prasad's position are not anti-innovation, they are seemingly more restrictive and cautious for therapies that may have more nuanced risk-reward for patients. But he's an interesting person to go and look at and research. I'd never heard of him really before, but I don't think it's much of a surprise that this is the kind of person that is being involved at this time, where we're seeing a lot of kind of strange and different characters being put into big positions within this Trump administration.
Let's do a little bit of self-promo of the pod within the pod. People do go back and listen to our interview with Eric Garcia from The Independent, where we spoke about RFK Jr. at length and why fuck that guy. He's wrong about everything, and particularly sort of offensive and wrong when he talks around autism. Yeah. And also, Nikki mentioned that we spoke to Jamel earlier. We know who that is, but the listeners, you might not. We spoke to the one and only Jamel Bowie.
We did.
And he's on the podcast on Monday.
Coming up.
Very, very cool guy. And
nice.
So excited.
And nice and interesting. So yeah, be back here on Monday to listen to that. Nikki.
What's up?
Joe Biden's back, baby.
God damn it.
He's back. He's back. He's on the BBC.
During my conclave.
Yeah. Eating ice cream. I saw there was some ice cream coloured smoke came out of Washington. He's returned.
I got voted Pope in my Slack group the other day.
Hang on. Ice cream coloured smoke?
Exactly. Don't worry about it. Neapolitan it would be. It'd be like pink.
So a rainbow?
No. No.
She's
Oh,
like
okay.
a
Don't worry about it.
rainbow.
Don't worry about it. People
Okay.
know what I mean.
No, they don't.
But
No.
anyway, he's back. Oh, he's back, baby. Joe Biden.
We're
what did
so
you think
back.
to his interview and his return?
It hasn't been long enough.
No, he needs to go
Like,
away.
my dude, it just, you know what? Everyone is hating on the man right now. Trump's approval rating is below, like in the 30s in some metrics. Just let it be. Let it stew.
Yeah.
Like, you do not have to come be a distraction right now. No one wants to hear it. No one wants the spin. No one wants the justifications, the defenses of why you didn't drop out sooner. No one wants to hear you think the outcome would have been the same regard. No, nobody. Like, talk to your family. Talk to your grandkids. Go complain to your wife. I don't know. Just like leave us out of it. Right now, the Democratic Party is a shit show.
Yeah.
They need to figure their things out. They need to therapize themselves. They need a well-deserved break. They do not need you coming in and taking eyes off the only thing that is helping them right now, which is that the man who beat you is a shit show.
Yeah.
And people do not like what he's doing. So just go away. Go away.
Joe Biden, Mitch McConnell on the pod at the same time.
Oh, it'd be long, wouldn't it?
Eating those ice
We'd
cream.
have to have Life Alert on standby. I'm so sorry. No.
So a listener suggested that we have been neglecting Elizabeth Warren a little bit and speaking about Elizabeth Warren. So, Nikki, I want to ask you a question about Elizabeth Warren. Kind of. Crypto. There's loads of shit going on with crypto, and Elizabeth Warren seems to be a bit of the face of the Democratic fight back against some of what's going on. So talk to me. What's happening?
So there's two things going on here. Well, three big things. One is that days before his inauguration, Trump launched his own meme coin.
Okay.
Like Dogecoin, Fartcoin, there's a Trump coin. And theoretically, Trump is not allowed to like own these assets right now. Everything is under the control of his family because he's the president. There are laws against, owning a private business while you're the president. However, it's extremely clear who owns this and that Trump is promoting it and using his status as president to sell this crypto coin. Last month, the coin announced that they would be hosting a private dinner with President Trump at one of his golf clubs, the one in near DC, to 200 of the biggest investors in Trump coin. And the valuation of this stupid little meme coin shot up by another several, I think, $1 billion after the announcement was made. It was reported out yesterday by a combination of outlets, including Bloomberg, NBC, and the Associated Press over the course of the last week, that most of the buyers of this coin are likely foreign. So what essentially is being broadcast through the Trump coin is hey, here's this thing. If you buy it, you get access to the president. Because it wasn't just the dinner. If you were in a certain tier of investors in the coin, you'd get a private audience with the president. It's it's very clear and blatant corruption. So the other thing that the Trump family is involved in is this project called World Liberty Financial, which essentially has launched a decentralized crypto protocol that facilitates large cryptocurrency transactions and collects a cut of those fees. The big thing that was in the news this past week is that the government of Abu Dhabi is gonna use World Liberty Financial, which is controlled by the Trump family, to conduct a $2 billion transaction to buy a stake in Binance.
Okay.
The other crypto exchange, which was banned from the US. They were indicted and prosecuted in the US for financial fraud a couple of years ago. So they're technically not heavily restricted on the ways they can operate in the United States. The Trump family is essentially helping a foreign government buy a stake in a company that was convicted of fraud in the United States, and they're going to get a cut of that $2 billion deal. But Trump isn't the person in charge of it, so it's fine, whatever. It's not whatever. It's absolutely not whatever. And you're seeing Democratic lawmakers try and react and push back and say, hey, this is really blatant corruption, and it already is illegal. but you're seeing some legislation be introduced to kind of make anti-corruption legislation broader in order to include cryptocurrency schemes, because those are a more recent thing that like the emoluments clause didn't contemplate when it was written out.
I think we should launch our own crypto coin.
God, no.
What's it called?
Amphric coin, I guess.
Oh.
Because another podcast has done it. Hoctoire. She did a coin. So yeah, let's do it. Make a load of money and do a
Yeah,
rug.
she rug pulled a bunch of people.
I don't know how to do a rug pull, but it sounds like it's pretty good if you manage it.
Ooh.
For yourself, it is.
Ooh.
Guys, do you want the podcast to be better?
Well, that's not the way to do it. How could it get
pull.
better? This is the best US politics podcast in the world.
True. But we'd be comfier. We'd be sitting in big gold armchairs or something.
Oh,
Let's go
right, Trump.
Exactly. Listener question time. Right. This one is from Graves on Spotify, who asks, what's the point in confirmations if most of them just confirm anyway? I don't understand why they confirmed him. This was in relation to RFK Jr. Is there a good reason for why they would just confirm someone? Nikki, what's the reason other than just, I don't know, blind loyalty to Trump? Are there any practical reasons why they think it's a waste of time to not confirm people? You know, why do they just put people through who are unfit?
So the thing is, I think you have to go back here to the role of the Senate and Congress in general as a check on the presidency. So we may have discussed this in a previous episode, but the idea here is that the president picks his cabinet. He gets to decide who he has in his inner circle, who he has on his privy council, to borrow a term from you bitches. But because we live in a democratic government and these are extremely high-ranking government positions, the theory here is that the Senate advises and consents. The Senate, which is made up of people who were elected via the ballot, will interview these people and ensure that there are no major conflicts of interest, that they're qualified for the position, that the president isn't just like appointing his friend because he can. And historically, that in itself acts as a check on the president. If you know that the person you're picking is going to be put through these hearings, that they're going to be scrutinized, that people are going to dig into their background, that they're going to be asked tough questions about the job and about their record, you're going to put forward someone who you think is qualified and you think is going to make it through the confirmation process. And people have failed the confirmation process. What's more common, though, is that if it starts looking like the person is absolutely not going to make it through the confirmation process, the nomination gets withdrawn, which is what happened with Matt Gaetz. Matt Gaetz, if people recall, there was the whole ethics scandal about him, like, potentially hooking up with underage girls and, like, traveling to different states with them for weird parties. This is all alleged. But at the time that Gaetz's nomination was being considered, you had this massive ethics report that the ethics committee was kind of trying to bury in a way. And it just became so untenable that the Trump administration ended up withdrawing the nomination and submitting Pam Bondi. The other thing I want to touch on here is that it's not just about who the president proposes, because I think probably the majority of Trump's nominees for his cabinet positions, for Senate confirmed positions, were unqualified, underqualified, just bad people who have no business being in government. The exceptions are rare. The other thing to consider here is that the minority party only has a certain amount of leverage. The minority party really has to pick who they're going to go all in on to say, we are not confirming this person. When you have what you have right now in the Senate, which is a very narrow Republican majority, if you become the senator, that is the Republican senator, who is constantly blocking your own party's nomination, that is a recipe to get primaried. That is a recipe to have the actual institutional party turn on you and be like, you are not cooperating. You are not a team player. We're going to get you out and replace you with someone who does. And that doesn't mean it's correct, but that's just kind of the political calculus that I think a lot of Republicans made with this nominee.
Final question from a listener then here, Nikki. This one's for you. Dave Kidneys asks, what is the theme of Nikki McCann Ramirez's fan fiction?
Yeah, we'd all like to know.
I'm not telling them, and I'm not telling the listeners. Excellent try. Actually, no, that was a mediocre try. Do better.
Shot to the kidney for Dave Kidneys.
Very good.
Well,
You should have just said shot to the Dave Kidneys.
yeah, maybe. But anyway, if you want to ask questions, remember that you can speak to us on our new Patreon community chat, which you will have access to if you sign up to our £5 and above tier on Patreon, which also gets you bonus content. There's a link in the show notes, or go to patreon.com/American Friction to sign up. And with that, that brings us to the end of this episode of American Friction. Nikki, thanking you.
Thanking you, boys.
Chris, thanking you.
Jarv, thanking you.
Very nice. And Simon, oh, Malige, thanking you.
My lord!
Thank you so much.
Oh, grazie.
Why are we putting on
Grazie.
the accents?
Oh,
Why
actually,
have you got Italian?
I don't know. With that, you've got an impression to do. Do the big show then.
And it's the big show.
Yeah. Very, very nice. And
Thanks, man.
if you want to make this show even a more big show,
Very good. Oh, that's why.
search American Friction Podcast
why you're the
Patreon
host.
to support us. Go to patreon.com/American Friction to sign up. There's the link in the show notes. And a quick reminder, if you enjoy what we do, but you can't back us financially, we totally get that. But please do go subscribe, rate, review, wherever you're listening to the show. We'll be keeping an eye out. We'll know if you didn't. So, it's American Friction. We see you when you're sleeping. We know if you're awake. Thanks for listening. Come back
Jesus.
soon.
My God.
Oh my God.